Good evening, everyone. Happy Thursday. Thanks so much for joining us. It's been another beautiful day here in Napa Valley. You can see the sun starting to go down. Tamara, you can send a little of that rain down to us from Seattle. We would greatly appreciate a little bit more. It's been kind of dry since that first deluge we had, but the weather has been very enjoyable to be in. I'd only be happier if it were raining. It's just gorgeous out. And thank you all so much for joining us tonight, for sharing, caring, and holiday entertaining. We've got some exciting guests with us this evening. And of course, Chef Todd bringing another wonderful dish to our holiday table. I'm tasting a glass of the beautiful 2017 Rutherford Merlot. And I think we've got some 2017 Malbec being tasted out there. So hopefully you're all enjoying and have a glass of wine in hand as we kick off. You all know the routine. Please do ask your questions on the chat. Raise your hand if you have, if you'd like to jump in and ask a few additional questions. We're happy to have all of you here with us today. So thanks so much for coming. One of the great things that we're doing is enjoying this Malbec, and it is dark here in Napa Valley right now. So Michael Garcia took a little shot of us of how parcel 10 is looking earlier today, knowing we'd be here in the dark, to give us an update on all how that erosion control and cover crops are doing. So let's have a little look out there at what Michael Garcia is showing us from earlier today. Beautiful sunset there.
Hey everybody, we're here in parcel 10 where we've been observing the vine growth all year. As you can see, the vines are dormant, and after the rain last month, the cover crop is growing vigorously. We've had some warm days recently, and the cover crop we seeded is coming up very nicely here and in all our parcels. So after taking a look at 10A here, we'll go look at the cover crop growth in some of our other parcels.
Yeah, it certainly is looking good. It is one of my favorite times of the year to see everything turning green as the vines grow dormant, and we've got that great erosion control in place with the cover crop, adding biomass to the soil, creating a wonderful environment to help with the biodiversity on the property. I think the sheep will be back soon, and they'll start mowing through the cover crop in a very gentle and organic fashion, composting that rapidly back out into the vineyard. But a beautiful day. We do hope you come and visit us soon. This wine, I think, is one of my favorite wines for pairing for the holiday season. The Rutherford Merlot and the Malbec are just great, delicious wines, great density, but they also are so flexible with food for the holiday season. So we've got Michael Scholes, our VP of Viticulture and Winemaking, and our other winemaker, Brooke Shank, with us today. And I'd love to hear what you two think about this 2017 season. I know we started out with a lot of rain in 2017. You want to tell us a little bit about how that growing season was and how it's reflected in the glass?
Yeah, absolutely. 2017 season, was quite an interesting year. We started out with quite an extreme winter. We actually had an enormous amount of rainfall, which is good because it sets up the ground for the oncoming season, allows our lakes to fill, and puts the whole properties into a great place to start a season. The season came along. We had a nice warm May. It presented very, very well, and allowed the bud break to sort of initiate, and then the growth of the vines to get going, and then of course we moved on into the summer, and then the nice mild approaching conditions of the spring changed a little, and we got quite a lot of heat units in that season. So a warmer summer, it brought the harvest on a little earlier for the whites particularly, and then slowed down into the red harvest part. But so a warmer summer, and really kicked things into gear. But the result of the wines was quite positive. We created red wines that generally had a good density, good centre, but a little more gentle in their structural feel and what have you. So yeah, really quite a good season. Yeah.
Yeah, I love this Rutherford Merlot because, as you say, the density is really wonderful. It's a crowd pleaser to begin with, but I think because of the density and the structure of this wine, you don't always expect that from Merlot. I think your sophisticated wine guests are going to be particularly pleased.
It's actually quite a pretty wine, and like our Merlot typically has, and it's quite consistent in sort of fruit profile. So it has nice sort of black plum sort of qualities, black cherry qualities, and what have you. Has a bit of that mocha thread through the aromatics, particularly, and it sort of carries through the flavour profile. Quite typical about our Merlot, which it should, because it's an estate wine, of course, and with the same blocks, same plants, year by year. But yeah, it's a really pretty wine. This wine's got some good grace and good charm through the completion of the palate.
Yeah, delicious. What do you think, Brooke?
Yeah, I think, I think this is a serious wine. It's definitely really a dark Merlot. And I get like a lot of dark cherry and raspberry and that mocha that we typically get. But I mean, one thing that is noteworthy of this Merlot is that a third of it was fermented in the new French oak barrels, as we've talked about in the past with the barrel fermentation. So again, we're incorporating that into this blend. And I think it really adds to the complexity of it.
Yeah, it does. I love the texture on it. And it's kind of fun to have it next to the 2017 Malbec as well. That Malbec's so juicy. And I know you're a big fan, Brooke, of putting the Malbec in with Cabernet, like we have in our Dollarhide Elevation. That was your brilliant blend when we first created that. And I know a number of our neighbors do have some Malbec in with their Cabernet, but I have not been able to find other single vineyard Malbecs from Napa Valley. I found like one. So it's kind of a fun treat.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it is a little bit unique to find just a Malbec. So I think it's a special wine and can be really fun to take for entertaining or to host somebody with, because not everybody gets to see a Napa Valley Malbec. So it's really fun.
Well, it's certainly delicious and really juicy and bright. I think this wine. I always feel like you two create wines that have great acidity and freshness, but particularly this Malbec.
The Malbec's, and it's kind of unique about the Malbec. It tends to be a wine that has great verve, great life. It appears quite youthful even after it's been in barrel for nearly 2 years. And part of the reason it does that is that's its personality, but also it carries its acid quite well. And when you carry that acid, it gives you a sense of youth and a sense of vibrance and what have you. So yeah, it has that sort of verve about amongst the feel of the wine, along with its flavour profiles, which for us is, on our vineyards, is that real dark sort of plum sort of quality. So yeah, really interesting wine and a fun complement. And Malbec's quite a different wine than the other Bordeaux style varietals, which is cool.
Yeah, it really is delicious. So, we all are looking forward to what Chef Todd's going to be making with this wine. But Michael, what do you put on the grill with the Malbec and with the Merlot?
Malbec's got I think can handle some little more powerful meats and what have you. And I do like to grill on the barbecue, of course. And so I'll pair something that has a little more power to it, like lamb. I think it does really well with lamb on the Malbec. And on the Merlot, that's quite versatile. I mean, you can that can roll with steaks, and things like that. But also that can pair down to like a as well. And so it's good versatility in Merlot. It's really a nice one.
Yeah, Chef Todd has definitely been giving me lots of great ideas for red wine and seafood and some good bridges for that Merlot to some of my seafood favorites. But I do know that the meats are going well with both of these wines, as we'll see tonight. Brooke, what do you have going on in the cellar this week? What's been happening? We haven't seen you for a couple of weeks to talk about what's going on in the cellar.
It's been a very exciting week, actually, because today we bottled the 2021 Napa Valley Estate Sauvignon Blanc. So that was exciting. We just came out of harvest and we put that blend together. It looks really, really good. And it's always great to get it into bottle. So that today was a good day. We also did bottle our Muscat Canelli from Dollarhide as well this week. So 2 wines in the bottle, really exciting, and they look fantastic.
That's great to hear. You two have just been waxing poetically about what a great vintage 2021 has been. And, what I've tasted so far has been quite delicious, but I know there's not a lot of it. It's going to be, if those are some of your favorite wines, you're going to need to get your orders in early because there's not a huge amount. But I do know when you're doing the Muscat Canelli, Brooke, I know it always makes you a little nervous having it there in the cellar for a while with that residual sugar. Are you feeling pretty good right now?
Yeah, it's always a little bit relieving to get it into bottle and know that it cannot ferment anymore. So I'm happy to have that stress off my shoulders now.
Well, we're happy that you put another delicious wine in the glass. So thank you for that. And it's going to be great to share these wines with our friends over the holiday season. And we've talked a little about sharing with friends, but I really want to talk a little bit about caring right now, because I'm so excited to have Michael Caldarola, who is an active volunteer in the UpValley Family Centers, with us tonight. He is an active volunteer as well as a board member for the past 6 years. He serves our community in so many ways and has helped govern the organization through a lot of recent challenges with the wildfires and the pandemic, where, the UpValley Family Centers here have been so helpful to our community. He's been a volunteer tutor, assisting students at the local elementary school with English or math on a weekly basis for several years. And he's just so enthusiastic about giving back to the community and making it a vibrant and inclusive place for people of all ages and backgrounds. And, in addition to tutoring and serving as a mentor to our youth, Michael also is an IRS trained and certified volunteer with our volunteer income tax assistance program. You all know, as a CPA, that's near and dear to my heart, helping file those tax returns for our neighbors. And thanks to Michael and other volunteers, they've assisted in securing $7 million in refunds and tax credits to local families. So kudos to you, Michael. You are doing so much for our community. And I just really appreciate you joining us today to share with us a little bit about family centers and how you got involved as a volunteer. So welcome, Michael.
Thank you.
It's great to have you. So tell us a little bit about the UpValley Family Center, because a lot of the folks joining us tonight may not know all of the roles that family centers play in their community. It's really a central hub.
Yes, well, the UpValley Family Center is, as its name, establishes, we service the community in the UpValley, basically from Pope Valley, Calistoga, Angwin, St. Helena, Rutherford. We actually serve as kind of the social service agencies for the communities up here, because each community, Calistoga, St. Helena, do not have their own separate social service agencies. We are a pretty full service family resource center. We have 5 program areas with family and senior wellness, economic and success and adult education, community engagement, education, and disaster assistance management. And within those program areas, we have numerous service programs, say for seniors, education from pre-K through high school. We have immigration services, citizenship, voters' rights programs. We have and what has come on strong in the last years when disasters, the fires have hit, we've become a very involved and the go-to agency UpValley for distributing the funds that, say, the Community Foundation in Napa makes available to us. We have the trust of the community. We have, they are used to the personnel that we have, our case managers that they've been coming to for years for other purposes. Now in their times of need, whether it was from COVID or from fires, homes, rentals, the many who lost their jobs or are needing financial assistance, they were able to come to us, to a trusting place, and go through the process of being vetted for their eligibility for financial services. And we ended up being able to distribute many millions of dollars of very needed rental, home, food assistance, and to the community that was most hardest hit by these disasters.
You know, it really has been wonderful since UpValley Family Center formed from merging the Calistoga and the St. Helena Family Centers. You provide so many services to our communities, and we're so grateful, particularly during the fires. And I know the Community Foundation has helped with that a lot with the Disaster Relief Fund, and you are one of their key go-to organizations when disaster strikes in our community, as we've been a little too familiar with. I am hoping that's all behind us now. But tell us a little bit about how you became a volunteer and what got you into volunteering.
Well, I became a volunteer because I was raised by a mother who was a volunteer, who felt very committed to helping people who were not as well off as we were able, as we were. Not that we were, like this uber wealthy or anything, but we had a comfortable life. I have a comfortable life now. I'm carrying on the tradition with my mother looking down from me and hopefully being proud of her son. I feel I've had a very good life, a comfortable life. I retired and felt that I have an ongoing duty to do what I can to lighten the burden that other people feel because of for economic reasons, for reasons of immigration status, for reasons of age. And so what I can do helps my soul and gives me purpose.
Well, we all appreciate all your hard work here. Share with us kind of one of your most meaningful interactions or successes that you've had as a volunteer.
Well, a couple. One, I tutored a boy from fourth grade and into fifth grade who basically he was actually a very bright boy, but he had emotional issues related to family stuff that was just interfering and causing him to act out, and he needed to be segregated from the school, from this classroom. And so we just bonded in a way that allowed us to spend our time not so much maybe on a reading, writing, and arithmetic, but on just talking and calming his sometimes his agitated state. So we did this for 2 years, and then I've run into him on the street, and now he's grown more. He's in the sixth grade and seventh grade, but I've run into him on the street, and he's come like running and jumped into my arms. So it's a testament to the closeness and the meaningfulness of the bond that we establish. And I don't, my wife and I, we don't have children, but it was I get the feeling that the parents get when their kids do love them and come running into their arms. And I've had that experience a couple of times, and so it makes it even more worthwhile.
Well, you are shaping our future by helping these young people. And, one of the other things that I know you also help with is financial literacy, which is just a fantastic thing that is so in need across the country. And there's a lot of resources available, but there's just not enough places to provide those services. And family centers are a great place to provide financial literacy classes. Can you talk a little bit about that as well? Because it's just a wonderful service.
Well, we have a population of people who are here for the first time, but who are here with their kids, who've never really had to deal with organized financial interaction with banks, with applications for this, for credit. We have programs to teach people everything from how to balance their checkbook to lending circles, which allow people to pool their money, and then they borrow against this for a certain purpose, and then have a payback plan that allows that over a small course of time, and allows them to actually start establishing credit. And that, as we all know, is just absolutely vital to having a ability to integrate and be part of our economic system here. So the helping people with their banking, helping people with applications for everything from rental agreements to payment plans to lending circles has been a big thing. In addition to the VITA program and doing the taxes, we also have the same thing for kids, high school kids, teaching them how to help their parents with these things, because they're a little bit having been a little bit more open and a little bit more exposed to the other kids in the classroom. They are ready to learn some of this stuff and can help their parents, especially with the language, some of the language issues that are there.
That's excellent. So tell us how other people can get involved in their communities or support your organization or other family centers near them.
Well, I'd say every community or of a certain size has a family resource center, and you just need to Google around and find out what it is in your communities. They are all are open to volunteers. Just ask and see what programs they have to volunteer. If you're in the UpValley, we have you can call the center and find out what, or go to the website and find out what volunteer opportunities are available, and get involved directly. There's nothing like direct involvement as a volunteer. But if you don't have the time or you're hesitant to get involved directly, financial assistance is always very welcome, and probably the most important type of financial assistance that you can give family resource agencies is an ongoing, sustained kind of a multi-year commitment to a donation, like you would do for your public radio station or your symphony or your ballet or whatever. They all have programs in place that you can sign up for that allow you to donate on a monthly basis, all tax deductible, of course. And that regularity helps the family resource agencies stabilize their income, and because they have a stable income, then they can keep their programming, their existing programming going, but they can also see whether they can expand them. And there's always a need to expand the programming.
Well, Michael, thank you so much for that. Your work is inspiring, and we appreciate what you're doing for the future generations, for all of us, as they're going to be leading the path next. And we also today have with us Joanna Letz, who's with Bluma Flower Farm in Berkeley, California. And for Joanna, farming is a way of life, reconnection to the cycles of life, and giving back is part of her mission. And with a desire to work with her hands, be outside, and be of service to people on the planet, it's not surprising that Joanna is making a difference. And she's making a difference one bouquet at a time. A percentage of her beautifully wrapped bouquets and herbs are donated to local community organizations in need. She also does starts for community gardens. And we're really excited to have Joanna here because, you know, you say farms in Berkeley. Well, farms on rooftops in Berkeley is a lot of what Joanna's been doing, really creative at using that rooftop space and bringing delight to those around her. And so I'm delighted to have Joanna here with us today because she is also going to teach us all how to do a wonderful bouquet for our holiday table. So Joanna, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. So I'm here in our studio in our basement, and our farm is just on the roof. We have about a 1/4 acre of space on the rooftop, and we grow mostly cut flowers and herbs. I also have in the past grown some produce. So last year on my farm, actually in Sonol, where I have an acre, we grew popcorn and winter squash, and then we were able to donate some of that produce to both Poor Magazine in Oakland and Homies Empowerment Project in Oakland. And both those organizations work on food access, among many other things. So I highly recommend people check them out, and if you can, to donate to them directly. So today I'm gonna show you a little bit about how I put together a centerpiece. We harvested all these greens on the rooftop, and all the flowers we're going to use today are also from the farm. We just got a little head start and went ahead and added some greens already to our arrangement. But I'm going to show you how we make it all happen. So you can get any like vase or like round bowl, and then we use chicken wire and we just make it into a ball and throw it in there. And then this is actually floral tape on top, and we go all the way around to make sure it stays. You don't have to use floral tape. You could use other kinds of tape as well. And this is great because it's reusable. We don't use any floral foam. Floral foam is really, it's, you know, goes in the trash once after you're done with it. So it's not a great product. So, and actually getting the greens in the arrangement once you have that chicken wire is pretty easy. A couple things that I like to keep in mind is that I want different heights and also texture, and even like having different colors of greens really adds a lot. So we have some eucalyptus and scented geranium. And we also have a little bit of feverfew in here that was actually a volunteer on the farm. So it just came back from some seed, from some plants that went to seed. I also like to think about kind of if almost have a bird could fly through my arrangement. So it's not super dense in any one spot. There's a lot of movement. You can see this eucalyptus is going up a little bit and then down the other side over there. If you do end up using, I don't know if you can see, this is a footed bowl, but if you end up using something footed, it can be really nice to even have something hanging over the side. So whether you maybe have some fruits in your backyard or apples or citrus, whatever it is, you can kind of hang it over the side. And even sometimes we'll use, like, if I were to use a piece of fruit that didn't have any stem, you can actually put some wire into it and then put it in your arrangement that way. So I think, you know, one thing I love about arranging is it's just a time to get creative and really like use what we have. So, you know, whether that's like some weeds in your backyard, I really love using herbs. Even my favorite arrangements, honestly, are all greens and herbs, maybe a few little kind of dancing flowers, but I am going to go ahead and add some things to this. One thing I just wanted to, I harvested kind of special for this is we still have some basil on the rooftop because it's been warm and it actually doesn't frost on the roof, so it's still going. And I love using the herbs because it just is such a wonderful scent.
That's nice with the lemon basil and the scented geranium is a great combination. Makes you want to even put maybe some of the winter citrus in there too.
Totally. Yeah, we grow a lot of herbs and edible flowers, but again, like whatever you have blooming in your backyard, or maybe ask your neighbor if they have something that looks a little weedy, that they wouldn't mind. And now I'm just adding some anemones, which it's kind of unusual to have anemones this time of year, but I actually didn't dig up our plants this spring after they flowered, and I planted right on top of them and they started to come back. So these are just, can't totally tell because it's not all the way open, but really beautiful anemones. So I'm kind of going in at an angle, so not everything just upright, so that you really get different heights. And I like to do what's called color blocking, which is kind of like putting similar flowers, similar colors together. It kind of makes it's just easier on the eyes. We also still have zinnias on the roof, so I'm gonna go ahead and add some of these. I do like to cut the flowers again before I put them in the arrangement. And the other nice thing to keep in mind when you're using chicken wire is it's nice to have a really clean stem. One, you don't want greens down there like leaves because it can get your water mucky. And then also, if I did put something in and I wanted to take it out again because I didn't like where it is, you don't want a piece of stem that could get caught on the chicken wire because it can be a little frustrating. So for example, I'm going to actually cut this down a little further so I don't have all these zinnias at the same height. But I am going to put them all kind of in the same zone. That lemon basil just smells so good. The other thing to add that I like to add is kind of like the more like little bits. So we have some scabiosa. I might put these a little bit higher on the arrangement. And then, you know, something I like to do is sort of stand back from the arrangement and take a look. And then I might kind of change things around. You also want to think about where your arrangement's going to go. I wanted to keep this anemone tall because it's just such a nice stem, but I think I'm going to cut it down. So if your arrangement is going to go on a dinner table, you might want to just make sure you don't, you know, you don't want to block people's view. And then if you were going to put this somewhere like next to a wall, maybe it's going to be one-sided. So then you can kind of just or design with one side. So I actually have this arrangement on a Lazy Susan, so I can spin it around as I'm going. I really love, using this digitalis. So
always pretty, and they last forever, it seems like too.
Well, especially when we're harvesting and using our flowers right away, they also last longer. So, but there are certain varieties of things that have specific, what we call post-harvest needs. But, you know, if you're just kind of playing around, there's not too much to worry about. Sometimes the poppies, certain types of poppies, and anything in the mint family, so like the basils, occasionally we will sear the stems, so we'll put them in boiling water. But because the basil that I used is already in flower, I can tell that it's pretty hardy, so I didn't sear those stems. So there's also a little thing that in the floristry world people call bunny ears. So where you have two pieces kind of going out on the sides like that. I mean, again, it's kind of like personal preference, but I am going to make that a little lower so it's not like the bunny ears. Yeah, and we also have some beautiful I only grow this type of sunflower. It comes in a sort of range of plum tones. So I'm going to go ahead and add some of those in as well. Let's see, am I forgetting anything else? I have a few, right now on the roof, we don't have a huge amount of flowers blooming. So some of the things that I'm harvesting are actually volunteer plants that we didn't plant. So I have some cosmos here.
Those are pretty.
I love growing. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just not being afraid to just kind of try and see what you enjoy putting together and looking at.
Well, I love all the textures and the different scents that you're adding. And I really love the chicken wire idea because it's reusable and not adding all that sort of styrofoam into waste. So that's another great use of that. Thanks for that tip. Any other tips we should be thinking about?
Let's see. I mean, I think, you can also buy flowers to play around with. So at the farmer's market, you might be able to still get some local flowers, but I think, yeah, just encouraging people to play around with what you have just right outside your door, and also supporting and buying local flowers. So you can support us by going on our shop. We don't have a huge amount of fresh stuff right now, but we're making lots of wreaths. So we are doing a wreath workshop in a couple weeks as well.
Oh yeah, well, we'll definitely post, looks like we've posted online when the Wreath Workshop is. So if you're in the Bay Area, definitely check that out. A little extra help for your holiday display is always nice to have, plus a fun activity to go and do with friends. So thank you so much. That's just beautiful, Joanna. We appreciate you joining us today and for what you're doing for the community and helping people with food insecurity and helping with the community gardens and bringing a little joy to the community with some beautiful flowers as well. So thank you for that. And thank you, Michael, for all you do as well. Now, some of us need to be able to bring a little joy to our families. And so Chef Todd is here to help us with that activity, the all important bringing joy to the family and friends supper table. So Chef Todd, I know you've got some elaborate venison tonight. So that's pretty interesting. Let's tell us what's going on in the kitchen.
Of course, my pleasure. Welcome, everyone. Staying with the theme of holidays and roasts and things that you can do up for a feast or a special gathering. I'm basically kind of reaching outside of the norm. You may have your family favorites or things that people are going to bring. Some of these ideas that I've been trying to showcase over the past couple of weeks are just maybe alternatives. Maybe if you want to try something different. If you want to do a supplemental extra protein dish on the side, something else that you can do to mix it up a little bit, try something new. If you happen to have either one of our beautiful wines, the Merlot or the Malbec, you may want to give this recipe a try if you're following along and you've got the ingredients. That's great. The venison tonight is a great way to present a different kind of a protein, something that's still a beautiful red meat that goes really well with our wines. So that's why I'm not afraid to utilize it. Chefs love to try different proteins and things like that, and hopefully you give them a try as well. To source your venison, there's different ways that you can do that. If you're fortunate and you have some great butcher shops or markets that are around, they may carry that. So you can ask your butcher about that. Otherwise, you can always get on the web. There's all kinds of web searches you can do to find some great sources. I can think of a couple different options where, number one, there's quite a bit of New Zealand farmed venison. And so you can have that. They'll ship that and you can import that in. That's a huge market for them in New Zealand. The venison there is very mild. It's a beautiful color. It's nutrient dense. It's got some great iron in the meat itself. The diet is nice and clean from eating the grass pastures there. And so that's one source that you can find it. The other one is a domestic source here in Texas called Broken Arrow Ranch. And that's one that a lot of chefs and culinarians know about. We've supported and used that product in the past. I know that I enjoyed some of their different types of deer that they have and antelope. And so if you're looking for some exotic meats, if you want to try something like that, you want to branch out a little bit, expand your culinary horizons, and maybe you want to get on those websites and try it. You can buy some of those cuts. They're either in steaks, they're trimmed down loins. In this case tonight, I'm using a beautiful loin. This one happens to be from New Zealand, and it's a center cut loin. That's a nice piece that's fairly lean. That's the nice thing about the venison, is that they are fairly lean, and the color of the meat is pretty dark. They can, depending on the diet, they could be a little stronger in flavor, but I would never consider them to be gamey. So if that's something that you're worried about, don't let that distract you from giving these a try. The way that they eat, the natural diet that they have, or the grasses that they have, they're not as strong and gamey or off-putting by any means. The method on this by recipe is to use some of the wine. So you can use some wine that maybe you had a bottle that's left open a day or two old or something like that. Use that as a marinade. And what you're going to do is actually submerge these trimmed down venison loins in that wine along with some aromatic herbs. And I'll show you what I'm working with here. On the recipe, basically what I have are some fun different aromatics. And this is kind of a old-fashioned twists on some things. You'll find that there are quite a few spices in here. And in this case, obviously I've got some fresh bay leaf from our estate here. A couple things that are really interesting is juniper berry, and they go into a lot of marinades that you might find for venison. So juniper berries give off that nice spice. Obviously there's some whole black peppercorns, and then I do put in a couple cloves, just a little bit in there. I don't want it to be too clovey, but it's also one of those nice kind of warm spices that you pick up during the winter that you'll find in things even as much as like a mulled red wine. So if you can imagine those kinds of spices and aromatics that are in there, even though this is a cold marinade that won't be cooked like a mulled red wine, I'm kind of going for those same kind of ideas there. So those spices in there are fantastic. You're going to support that along with having some thinly sliced shallots. Add a lot of background flavor. It's a foundational building block flavor. I've got some fresh thyme here. Here's some beautiful rosemary. And then I really love sage when it comes to game meats and things like that. So that sage and that earthiness go really well together. So what you do is basically put all that in together, whether you put it into a bowl and you mix it with the wine. You can add garlic if you like in there. I didn't necessarily put garlic on my recipe, but if you want to, you can definitely put some garlic cloves or slice it in there. To make it easy, you might even want to use a Ziploc bag. That's what I did earlier. I took the clean loins that were trimmed down. Take a look at this beautiful loin here. Again, this is the one from New Zealand. You can see the beautiful color on the end there. Deep color red, but the beautiful purple because it was marinated in some of the wine. And so what I did was essentially it was already trimmed down. I just cut this piece in half. So it's typically 2 to 3 times this long. So if you're trying to gauge how much you might need for a party or for your family or group. I did take a little bit of butcher twine. So if you take a piece of butcher twine, it doesn't need to be too long. You just wrap it around and tie it off, almost like you're tying your shoes. That's going to hold the eye all together, and the meat should cook a little more uniform as opposed to thin and flat and then bigger over on one end. The idea is that it's nice and uniform. So after you snip those, after they're roasted, you just remove them and you have a more consistent kind of a presentation. So that's a classic thing to do there as well. Now this venison was marinated in that red wine, depending on the size of the eye itself. This can go anywhere from 6 to 8 hours. I did this one earlier in the morning. If you have a larger piece, you can also buy like a leg roast or a shoulder roast or something like that. Any piece that's bigger, you might even let it go overnight. Nothing wrong with that. Put it in the nighttime, let it go, take it out in the morning. What you'll find is that after you remove it, you're going to want to pat it dry. That's going to encourage the browning because we want to actually pan roast this. So we're going to sear it in a pan. But you also want to save your ingredients that were in the marinade. So out of all these ingredients I had on the tray there's my herbs and spices along with the shallots that were in there. You can see the color from the red wine. And then I saved some of the red wine itself because I'm going to use that to deglaze my pan and build the foundation of my sauce. And so you're hanging on to this as opposed to throwing it away. So whatever's in your Ziploc bag or your bowl, save some of it. Make sure that you have some of those because that will be part of the sauce building in the pan after it's been roasted off. So what I'm going to do now is show you how I'm going to sear this off. I've got a little burner here. You can use a pan. And you want to heat this up maybe over like medium to medium high temperature. A little too hot might be a little too aggressive with that wine marinade on the outside, and it might cause it to scorch or get a little bitter. So you want to be careful with that. Doesn't really take all that much. I'm going to use some olive oil that's blended with some canola oil, so it's going to help with the smoke point on it. So I can go over higher heat without it breaking down or giving off any bitterness or anything like that. So as that's heating up, I'm going to go ahead and season pretty generously with some salt and pepper on this. Do it off here where you can see. Nice even. My fingers are dry. Season from a height up above so that it coats nice and evenly and you don't have a heavy spot and a light spot. So every bite that you have is consistent in seasoning. Likewise, black pepper. This can take a good amount of black pepper. The flavor on this is deep in flavor. It definitely has a red meat feel, taste to it on your tongue, but it also has that wonderful red wine in there that helps. Kind of ties in the flavor and creates that bridge to the glass of wine, the bottle of wine you have there. You'll see the little ripple here as you look at the oil in the pan. You see that first little wisp of smoke. So I'm going to go ahead and put that patted dry seasoned venison loin in. Nice little sizzle that you hear there. That's what you want. It should not immediately ignite and flare up. It shouldn't be blaring white smoke. Otherwise, it's too hot to the point where it might scorch. You want to be careful with that. My oven is warmed up and preheated on this. In this case, this size of the loin, I am going to finish it off into the oven. If it were smaller, like maybe a single steak, you could just do it totally in the pan without going into the oven. If you had a tenderloin piece, the nice tenderloin versus the back loin, it's also smaller in diameter, so it won't take as long. You don't have to worry about going into the oven. But in this case, I am going to finish it in the oven so it continues to cook to a nice medium rare on the inside. In particular, they always recommend that with venison, you undercook it slightly, maybe a half degree to a degree less. So rare to medium rare is really nice because of the juiciness and the moisture in there. Again, this is a very lean animal. It doesn't have a lot of fat in there. So it eats better if it's a little bit on the underdone side. So as you notice, I'm just kind of leaving it so it sits. I've got just enough of the oil in the pan so it's not frying, but it is searing. And you can tip it up and take a look at the color. You see that beautiful color that you're looking for? That's what we were looking for there. Flavor development and depth. Also, the other nice part is that you can see in the pan here these little brown bits that are developing. And that's some flavor that's going to add to your sauce afterwards. So after you sear all the sides, you notice I'm just kind of rolling it around. Let it sit. You don't have to shake the pan or do anything. The more you move it, the more you break that seal, the less chance of a nice even crust on the outside that you have. And that's all about your flavor development on the outside there.
So Todd,
Then again, go ahead.
Other proteins that we could use if we're unsuccessful in locating the venison, although
yes, if you're not able to find venison, or if you like the idea of this whole preparation, but you want to try it on something else besides venison, pork would work wonderfully with this. So if you had a pork tenderloin, if you had a pork loin, boneless, that would be really nice as well. They can take that red wine marinade, and the spices work really well with the sweetness of that pork. So that would be a nice alternative as well. But you could, if you wanted to, you could go wild boar. If you want to go stay on the exotic side, you could do some elk or something like that, and maybe a little bit stronger. So the idea that you're adding the wine to it is really kind of adding a whole nother flavor dimension in there. So you can see this beautiful color all the way around, nice and even. It's not too dark. And again, my pan isn't blazing hot, but it's nice that it's getting a nice sear on the outside and developing flavor. Nice look all the way around there. So now, in order to keep this at the right temperature, I'm going to use one of my favorite utensils or tools here, kitchen gadgets. You've seen me use this before, probably. And this is kind of like the temperature guarantee on the inside there. So in order to judge the internal degree of doneness, I want this to be anywhere from 120 to 125 degrees by the time it's finished resting. And so what I'm going to use is this digital probe thermometer. On the end, here's the sensor. I'm going to put this into the thickest part of the loin here, and I'm going to set it for about 118 degrees so that the alarm will go off and tell me when it reaches that internal temperature. So this is fantastic because it helps you to know what's going on in there. You could use one of those digital probe, regular probe thermometer. That's an instant one. If you had one of these, you could check it as well. But this one is nice because you can actually put it into the hot oven and leave it in there, and it's oven proof, it's heat proof, so it won't burn. It will let you know. So as you're working on your side dishes, you're working on your vegetables, the salad, or you're just chatting with friends and enjoying more wine, you don't forget about it because it will set off an alarm for you. So you can set it. I'm going to have it at about 118 degrees, again, at that thickest point, and I will leave this in, and I'm going to roast it in this pan. All right, so here from this point, it's going to go into about this center section right here. So I'm going to go into the thickest end right here. So we're all seasoned up. I've got the temperature probe in there. I'm going to keep it in this pan as opposed to going into a roasting pan like a large rotisserie chicken or for roasting a whole chicken or a turkey or something like that, because it's small enough, and that way I can utilize the pan for the sauces. If I have a bigger roast like that shoulder or that leg roast that I was talking about, then I might want to sear it off and then transfer it into an actual roasting pan with a rack under it. Otherwise, I'm just going to go straight into my oven, which is preheated. Anywhere from 350 to 375 degrees should be good on this. You don't need to go extreme hot because it might cause it to dry out since it's a lean cut. So into my oven.
I love that Zoom oven.
Zoom oven.
Zoom oven.
And so I have my my temperature set there. Now what I'm going to do is work on a sauce here with the drippings that I have from the pan. You know that I always, to speed up the whole process, I will go ahead and pre-cook off another small example of the roast so that we can roll right into the finish. What you're going to find here is a smaller example of the same kind of roast. So this is venison that I cooked off earlier. And so you can see that by looking at this, you've got the beautiful browning on the outside there. There's not a lot of oil in the pan. I snipped the, this has been resting now for a while nicely. So the juices have kind of settled back into the meat. I know that I can gently warm it up and just slice right into it. And there shouldn't be a lot of the natural juices that run out there. So I just snipped and removed the butcher's twine that was on there. You can see how it held its shape. It's got a nice kind of tenderness to it there. So I'm going to set this off to the side and show you how you can start up on your sauce making, taking advantage of all this beautiful foundation that's here. I'm going to go ahead and turn this back on. So this would be after a few minutes. The one I just put in the oven, this would be probably maybe about 10 minutes later down the road by the time it hits that temperature. So what I'm going to do is take some of those aromatic parts that were in the marinade. And as this warms up, I'm going to go ahead and actually add in the herbs, the spices, and the shallots that are in here. What that's going to do is basically start to kind of open up the flavors. Going to also take advantage of all the goodies and all the flavor and juices and the brown bits that are in the bottom of the pan. You don't need a lot of oil in this case. You don't want it to be excessively oily. But now that I see that it's warm, I'm going to go ahead and add these in. And all I need to do here at this point is kind of stir them around and warm them, get a little toast on them. The shallots will lose some of their rawness. The herbs will toast and give off some of their aromatics. Likewise, the whole spices like the clove and the juniper and the black peppercorns in there. So again, not on extreme hot heat, low to medium. And then again, I saved some of that marinade. So it's already got the infusion and the flavor coming from a lot of these aromatics in here. So why not use it instead of throwing it out? You still have plenty of your bottled wine that you can enjoy for drinking. And so definitely take advantage of this wine that you use for the marinade. So after about a minute or so, you're going to want to go ahead and add this wine in. This wine does need to be cooked off. You want to burn off the alcohol. You want it to kind of reduce down or evaporate to the point where it's about half of the volume that it is right now. So if I have maybe I reserved about a cup or so, I want to take it down to about at least half a cup, if not a quarter of a cup. All right, so now the shallots are kind of changing color. I can tell that they're getting a little caramelization on there. I can smell some of the herbs kind of warming. Smells great, very aromatic. And so what I'm going to do now is pour this wine in, make sure it's not over too high of heat. You can see right away it'll sizzle, and it might flare up if you're not careful. So be careful to make sure you don't get any kind of an alcohol burn. And now as this cooks down, what's going to happen, classically speaking, is a deglazing, meaning that it's going to remove all the brown bits that were stuck to the bottom of the pan. It's also going to concentrate down, burn off the alcohol, give you a real nice depth of color, and an acidic background that will help cut through and kind of balance out the richness. So as this cooks down fairly quickly, if you have a large amount, if you're doing a big batch of sauce for your roast that you have, depending on the size and the quantity, You might even want to switch this now at this point, now that you've got all the goodies, and transfer it into a sauce pot size pot, as opposed to using this big wide saute pan, roasting pan. So now the other component that's really important, I might have not mentioned this before, is to have some beef broth. You can have some beef stock, beef broth. If you happen to have demi-glace or veal stock, that's fantastic as well. It's all going to add to the body of the sauce. And so this beef broth will go in just a little bit here as this kind of concentrates and cooks down even further. All right. So maybe after another 30 seconds or so, I'm going to add this in, cook it, and simmer it. I'll bring it up to a simmer, and then that will cook down by about a half. So this 2 cups that I have here will end up maybe about a cup altogether. And by the time I'm done with that, I'll show you what I have. After straining it into a pot, you can see that I've got another pot that I'm strain that next one into. I get rid of all the aromatics and the shallots and the bits I don't want in there. And then I'm going to take my dried cranberries, which I might not have mentioned earlier, but these are the dried cranberries that will go into the hot finished sauce, and that will steep and open up and bring out a lot of flavor of the cranberry in there. So those nice tart berries that are dried and concentrated, that's going to add a lot of intensity of flavor and color. So you can see right here, I'm just going to warm this back up gently. But this was the same idea, the same process that I did to start from that sauce to get it to this point here. So there's the cranberries that have kind of plumped up naturally in here. And that's the concentration of the wine cooked down. It's also the beef broth that was in there that cooked down. So it's all fortified along with the red wine, the herbs, the venison flavor from the pan drippings. And so all you need to do is basically warm that up now that your cherries or your cranberries are in there. And then what you can do is just platter this all up. You can slice it. Now, depending on if you're going to use this as a family style kind of a platter, you could put it onto a bigger plate like so, slice it, and have everyone help themselves. If you wanted to, you could put the excess sauce in a little sauce boat on the side or a ramekin. Likewise, if you wanted to do your own individual plating, you could do that as well. While it is in the oven, while your sauce is simmering away, you can work on your salad, your vegetable, your starches, your potato dish, whatever else you're going to serve it with. There we go.
Great.
Beautiful looking, fantastic color. It's got a little bit of a consistency, a viscosity to it. Just give it a little check. Make sure that it's got enough seasoning. If you want a little more salt in there, or a couple grinds of black pepper, that can definitely take it. It'll handle it well, and the wines also will pair well with that. So now your sauce is all ready to go. And so if you wanted to do a nice presentation, with a sharp knife, you take your rested venison that you have. Just go ahead and slice it. You don't have to go too thin on this. Nice kind of medallions, as they say. Beautiful color on the outside, nicely rested, pretty moist on the inside as well there. And then from there, you can just put it onto your platter, kind of shingle it or layer it out. Nice moisture, well rested, nice color in there.
Beautiful. So pretty.
And then, of course, if you wanted to, you can sauce it. I tend to like to not cover up the entire sauce or the entire eye of everything that we just cut, all the nice meat. So if you go off to the side just a little bit, that way each bite has some of the sauce on there, some of the garnish with those cranberries. And then you can always put the rest on the side if you wanted to. If you happen to have some of your favorite vegetables or potatoes or whatever else your holiday menu calls for, you could also garnish it on there. Nice wine enforced sauce, reinforced sauce, taking advantage of all those aromatics in the marinade.
And a beautiful bridge to the wine. So this is going to be delicious.
Exactly. So whenever you've got meaty dishes like this, that goes so well with the red wines. Anytime you're using the actual wine, you'll notice that I have a few sides and little accompaniments to go along with this. So here's some roasted potatoes that I did earlier, as well as some roasted mushrooms. These are mushroom caps, king oysters. And then a nice touch is also to have some roasted shallots. I love whole roasted shallots, almost like a caramelized onion, nice and roasted, depth of flavor. Super kind of warming flavors, hearty.
Nice.
So right along those lines, you have a nice array of some beautiful venison, along with the sauce that really complements the wines and goes well together with it. If you want to put some nice herbs on there for a garnish, you can, since it's kind of a festive, kind of a seasonal type of a presentation. I happen to have some rosemary blossoms, of course. I'm lucky to still have these coming out in the garden. Since I've got some rosemary in with a marinade, why not use some of that? Garnish with some of your rosemary. You can smell it coming off of the plate.
Well, I think Joanna's proud of you right now, Todd.
Edible herbs off the rooftop. I love that concept.
I know. I think our solar panels are in the way.
You know, you take advantage of the sun sources that you have and get creative, and you can generate some wonderful sources there. So really nice venison loin there, marinated red wine, taking advantage of the wine that was in the marinade and turning it into a pan sauce, and then steeping in some dried cranberries in there to give it that seasonal and kind of festive flavor and flair. Hope you enjoy this.
Oh, Todd, that looks just amazing. Thank you for more wonderful ideas. There's been quite a few tips here on the side on where to get more venison. And so I think this is going to be replicated on a lot of holiday tables. I hope we see it coming across on Insta and what everyone has done. And we look forward to next week. What's cooking next week, Todd?
Next week, we'll finish up on our holiday festive kind of plates and essentially do a twist on some ham. A lot of people would love to do baked ham for their Christmas or Christmas Eve dinner. Maybe that's one of your proteins that you have on the table. And so I thought I would do a little twist on some of the glaze that you can put over there. There's all different types of recipes, but believe it or not, to match up with our Moscato, flavor in the Moscato, going with the salty cured ham and then the nice glaze over the top there. And I'm actually going to utilize some of our Dollarhide peach preserves in that case. So I'll do a nice glaze to go onto your holiday ham though.
Okay, well, I'm looking forward to some tips on how to choose a ham and all those important things because my husband does love a good ham. I need to improve my skills there. So I'm looking forward to that and to seeing you all next week. Do check out the Everyday Hero exhibit online or in person at the winery. It'll be up for a while. And we hope that you have an opportunity to also listen to our Giving Tuesday podcast if you missed out on those. I know I saw Kathy on one of them. We hope you enjoy those, particularly Alexandra Cousteau's Oceans 2050 was really inspiring. And if you would like to have a very easy holiday gift that keeps on giving, you can make a donation to one of those Giving Tuesday charities of $500 and come out for the luncheon that we're going to have to support those organizations next year. Check it out on saintsuperi.com Giving Tuesday if you're looking for a little inspiration and a reason to come and visit us in Napa Valley. It's a gift that keeps on giving. And until then, we hope to see you again soon. Be well, be kind, and we appreciate you coming and joining us. Cheers.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you.